10 years from now, you will regret the bad habits you are building today unless you take action, because in this climate where women's health is not taken seriously, it has never been more important to understand your own body. So these are the habits that take under 5 minutes each, with actual research to back them up. But why should you listen to me? My name is Faye and I'm a doctor obsessed with the female body who is sick of women being lied to, and today we're covering hormone health, brain health, and the easiest habits that will insert seamlessly into a life you already do not have enough time for. Please let me know in the comments which ones you are going to try. I try and read all of them and we can keep each other accountable. So let's start with the flamingo. How many of you have had a granny, an auntie, or an older relative break a bone? I don't mean to scare you, but that could be you depending on the habits you build now. First, a little bit of tough love that too many of us ignore. If you're in your 20s or your 30s, the menopause isn't actually that far away. We think of it as something for older women, but it's a lot closer than we think, and the hormones that start declining can drop years before your final period. So what you do right now directly affects your quality of life after you are no longer haunted by the monthly visit from Mother Nature. But what does bone have to do with anything? Bone is constantly being broken down and rebuilt, and estrogen keeps that demolition and rebuild cycle in equilibrium. When estrogen falls away at menopause, the balance tips towards breakdown. But why should you care? Around 40% of women aged 50 will fracture a bone over the rest of their lifetime, and hip fractures are actually twice as common in women as men. I need you to know this because when you're 80, a hip isn't just your bone, it's your independence. What allows you to keep looking after yourself in your own home, doing what you want to do without relying on others. So, the flamingo, why you should consider standing on one leg when you brush your teeth. A fascinating study from 2012 of 865 adults over 75 years old found that standing on one leg for just 1 minute, 3 times a day for 6 months, reduced falls in women. Seems obvious, better balance equals less falling. But why should you care about it now when that study was done in over 75s? Poor one-leg stance performance was also linked with an elevated 10-year fracture risk due to weak bones in postmenopausal women aged 50 to 70. And another study found that every extra second you could stand on one leg for reduced your risk of hip fracture by about 5%. The best part of this habit is it won't take you any extra time at all. You are brushing your teeth anyway. When you're brushing your teeth on your left side, just raise your left leg. And when you switch to brushing the teeth on the other side, just switch legs. If you struggle to begin with, even better. That way you can feel yourself getting better each day and protecting your future health with no extra cost to your time. However, that doesn't actually help strengthen your bones, it just improves your balance. But I have a well-evidenced answer for that as well. Please listen if you've ever worried lifting weights will make you look manly, or stuck to cardio and Pilates as the more feminine default. Higher muscle mass is linked to higher bone density. Low muscle mass, otherwise known as sarcopenia in fancy medical terms, roughly doubles your odds of weak bones, aka osteoporosis, which is why it breaks my heart that for so many years the weight section was seen as for men and treadmills for women. So here's my actual system I use to trick myself to going to the gym, which I am biased, but I personally think is genius. Whenever I want to implement a positive habit into my routine that previously I have struggled to stick to, take the gym, for example, I implement a neuroscience-backed technique that I have coined an extremely intellectual name, the poo sandwich. Now, I've made a full video on this, which I will link on screen now, where I go through the neuroscience of trying to make habits stick, but just to give you a little bit of a brief overview. When I've got something I don't want to do, aka do the gym, do some work, something that isn't always appealing, I pair it with something I do want to do. So the way I trick myself to go into the gym is I tell myself I'll go walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes and crucially allow myself to scroll social media. If I scroll social media at any other point in the day, I do have this underlying guilt. Whereas going to the gym, I'm allowed guilt-free scroll time. But what happens 9 times out of 10 is I get myself to the gym, I walk on the treadmill, and then I think, whilst I'm here, I may as well do some squats, some Bulgarian split squats, grab some dumbbells, lift some weights, because once you are there, the barrier to entry is so much lower. The hardest part isn't the workout, it's getting yourself out the door. So anything you can do to trick yourself into working out is wonderful. However, if you genuinely do not have the time to get to a gym, the next habit will help, and the research behind it is truly fascinating. This habit is for my ambitious women working hard. Maybe you have a long commute, you work 12-hour shifts, or a career that means you have no time or energy left for yourself. I say this with love. I need you to say goodbye to an all or nothing mindset. The idea that anything less than an hour in the gym is pointless because it's just not true, and the evidence proves it. To understand the science, we first need to understand what VO2 max is. If you've not heard this term before, it's essentially the maximum oxygen the body can use during exercise. But most importantly, higher levels strongly predict longer lifespan, and your VO2 max does not care whether you do 5 minutes or 60 minutes in the gym. So let me introduce you to exercise snacks. These are short, structured bouts of physical activity lasting a couple of minutes, distributed throughout the day. Research shows they can significantly improve your VO2 max. But what could this look like? Maybe brisk climbs up the stairs for 5 minutes, or doing high knees on the spot as fast as you can for 30 seconds 3 times, or star jumps in your home office. The point is integrating it in the best way that works for you, rather than falling into an all or nothing mindset, thinking you need to subscribe to a gym aesthetic, membership, and 30 minutes to work out, because let's be honest, we don't always have that time. So please, let's stop complicating exercise and remember it's literally just moving your body to feel better. But what if you're so tired you don't want to do any of that at all? For years, I treated my body like an inconvenience. Even if I was exhausted, I would still push through. I was getting up at 5 a.m. to do 2 hours of work at my laptop before a 12-hour shift, and I genuinely believed that needing a rest was a weakness, and that the impressive version of me was the one who could override how she felt and keep going anyway. It took me way too long to realise if you ignore your body, it will just scream louder and louder until you listen. At this time, I was also getting ill every fortnight, and I never once connected those two things. Keeping track of your health, including your cycle, is one of the most important changes I made to my life. Take your cycle, for example. If it becomes irregular or there are longer gaps between each period, this could be a warning sign you need to speak to your doctor. But you can only notice a change if you were paying attention in the first place. What actually made a change for me was finally getting a Whoop so that I could track what my body was doing instead of overriding it. I have tried many fitness trackers before. However, I have ADHD, so having something on my wrist that is constantly lighting up, sending me notifications, just did not work. I found it so distracting, and it consistently broke my flow state, and I wasn't able to concentrate. It quietly keeps tabs on my sleep, recovery, and menstrual cycles so that I have a deeper insight into my own body. And I have even better news, because you can now use natural cycles with your Whoop. If you've never heard of natural cycles before, it's an FDA cleared birth control app that uses your body temperature and its intelligent algorithm to predict the days you are fertile and not fertile. So my Whoop collects my skin temperature overnight automatically while I sleep, and the Natural Cycles app transforms that data into my daily fertility status. Now, hormonal contraception is brilliant for so many women, and I'm not here to scare anyone off. But if you are someone who would rather not take hormonal contraception for whatever reason, Natural Cycles is a regulated option. So if you would like to try the Natural Cycles integration with Whoop, new Natural Cycles users can get 1 year free by clicking the link in the description of this video. Tracking your cycle and understanding your fertility is the first step in understanding your hormones, but your reproductive organs are not the only place hormones matter. If you've ever noticed that your focus completely falls off a cliff at a particular point in your cycle, this is the section that explains why, and more importantly, what that means for you decades from now. Your brain has estrogen receptors, which is why as estrogen shifts across your cycle and as it drops away towards menopause, so many women notice their concentration or cognitive function just isn't what it was. But beyond a little bit of brain fog, there is another reason why I need you to listen. Women are also more likely to develop Alzheimer's, so as a female, it's critical you understand how to protect your brain. The good news is that your brain builds something called cognitive reserve. Think of it like a backup hard drive on a computer that offers protection if something goes wrong. Just like in aging or cognitive disease, your brain is a muscle and it needs to be trained. So to build your cognitive reserve, one of the best things you can do is learning new things you did not know before. This gives your brain novelty, which supports its ability to be flexible and adapt later in life when your brain health is challenged. So challenge yourself to learn a new language on Duolingo every month. Learn all the rulers of the Roman Empire, or read a neuroscience paper on the tube. Whatever. Just feed your brain with newness. Something I do genuinely worry about a lot is how brain rot now will specifically affect women in the future, because our brain health is already more at risk. And look, guys, I am as guilty as the next person for a doom scroll, and I notice how much worse my attention span is getting as my screen time goes up. Where women are already at more risk with their brain health, I really worry about how the added risks to brain health will present themselves in 20-30 years' time. And brain health really is such an ignored part of the conversation when it comes to women's health. And of course, your brain can't run without any fuel, which brings me to the habit I got wrong for the longest time. This is the single most important factor in women's health, and I almost never see it in the posts telling you how to balance your hormones. In a world where it feels like every day the people we are seeing are becoming smaller and smaller, we need to have this conversation sooner rather than later. Without going too much into my personal opinion on GLP-1s, I truly believe that they are a miracle of modern medicine for so many people. And I say that as someone who struggled with their weight for many years, and I know how bad my mental health was during that time. So giving people that option is incredible. However, I do have a worry about how these medications reduce people's appetite. I do worry about the individual consequences of appetite being suppressed, but also the societal consequences of seeing everyone around us get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it feels like the pressure to eat less is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And this will have an undeniable impact on women's hormonal health. But why does that matter for our hormone health? When your body isn't fueled properly, it prioritizes the systems that keep you alive: your brain, heart, lungs, and kidneys, because baby making is not essential for keeping you alive, so it gets deprioritized. Which means when you don't eat enough, it can imbalance estrogen and progesterone and disrupt your cycle. And that affects fertility, bone health, libido, and mood. And I don't know about you, but I value every single one of those things a lot more than a number on a scale. A Ferrari can't run without fuel, and neither can you. Two things that have genuinely helped me: one, eat regular meals. Even if your dinner is big enough, going too long without eating puts your body under stress, and stress is the signal that tells your reproductive hormones to retreat. Next is for the girlies who train before work. Please stop going to the gym with nothing in you but a black Americano. I know there isn't always time for a full breakfast at 6 a.m, but even a banana or a glass of orange juice tells your body there's fuel in the tank, so it doesn't start panicking and pulling the plug on your hormones. As I've mentioned, I struggled with my weight and energy levels, and we know that weight and blood sugar levels over many years influence our risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and so much more. So I completely understand why this topic is so important, but there are some really interesting hacks that aren't spoken about enough for optimizing your metabolism and blood sugar. If you would like me to do a full video on that, let me know in the comments and by clicking the subscribe button so that you don't miss it. But there's one super simple habit I'd like to introduce you to that really helped me. I call it the Post-Prandial Pod. If you have any family members who've had a heart attack or type 2 diabetes or have any issues with their blood vessels, please listen. After we eat a meal, our blood sugar goes up. Now, this is completely normal and not something to be frightened of, whatever the internet is currently telling you. And there is a hormone you may have heard of, insulin, and insulin's job is to take what you don't need right now in terms of blood sugar and put it away for later. Think of the food you're eating like your salary. Some of it you spend now, and the rest goes into savings. When insulin is working well, this keeps your blood sugar levels relatively steady. However, issues arise when blood sugar levels stay persistently high over long periods of time. This can cause inflammation in your blood vessels and insulin resistance, where your body stops listening to insulin, and a bit like a teacher who isn't being listened to, it just gets louder and louder to try and keep blood sugar levels under control. But there's a really simple habit you can start now that reduces your blood sugar peak after you eat, consequently reducing your risk of developing these conditions in later life. Go for a walk. It doesn't have to be long. In fact, studies have shown even a 10-minute walk started immediately after eating lowered peak glucose significantly. What's most important is timing. Some studies have found that the sooner after eating you have a walk, the more blood sugar was lowered. And the science is really interesting. When our muscles contract, they pull glucose out of your blood without needing insulin. So moving your body is what's really important, even if that's unloading the dishwasher. The worst thing you can do is sit and watch your favorite Netflix show, which if you have watched any of the vlogs, you will already know I am extremely guilty of. None of the habits I've mentioned address your nervous system, and in a world where the pressure to succeed has never been higher, but chronic stress increases your risk. But we know chronic stress is linked to an increased risk of heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. So understanding how to hack your nervous system has never been more important, which is exactly why I made a full video all about nervous system regulation. And it includes practical tips that are easy to implement into your own life, and you can click it by watching the video on screen now. Or maybe you want to watch this video, which has been specifically recommended just for you based on what you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah!